More than 12 months after negotiations on NAFTA began, Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland and her team are still at the table. Talks resume with the U.S. on Wednesday, just days after a new threat by President Donald Trump to cut Canada out of any new trade deal. Now, Canada's labour movement is playing an influential role in the talks like never before. One of the key figures who's been consulted is Jerry Dias, president of Unifor. He joins us now here in studio. Good morning to you. Now, Jerry, you had the opportunity to speak with the Prime Minister, and you guys were doing discussions over the weekend regarding NAFTA negotiations. What were you talking about?
Well, we really talked about holding the course. We really talked about not succumbing to Trump's bullying. Don't make bad decisions because somehow you feel like you're compelled to. Ultimately, there's some key issues that are important to Canadians that we have to deal with. We can't allow the United States to push us on culture. I can't imagine the CBC being owned by Fox Television. I can't believe the Quebec, how they would feel with having their cultural, individuality stripped based on the media, no Canadian content. So that's a huge issue. But then there's also the issue of the dispute mechanism. Who would sign an agreement with the United States with Donald Trump as the president without a dispute mechanism? So we need something that's going to be, be fair, something that we can, take our issues to, whether it's softwood lumber. I can walk through the whole host of initiatives, but there's key issues that have to be resolved.
So those are some of the top priorities right now that you were discussing with the Prime Minister ahead of the talks resuming on Wednesday. But we know that there were a lot of twists and turns. Well, there have been over the past several months, but specifically last week. And you were in Washington. What was the week like? We know that there was, sort of that off-the-record information coming out from the U.S. president, as well as the tweets that came out over the weekend. So what were the negotiations like last week?
Look, there was some meaningful steps forward for sure, but there was still chaos. Any discussions with the Trump administration, nothing goes smooth. I mean, Robert Lighthizer is the voice, but clearly he's taken his direction from the President of the United States. So there's not going to be a deal until the United States makes some significant moves, because it always appears as if they're somehow in the driver's seat. But we don't have to look at it that way. We don't have to take a step backwards. We're a nation rich in natural resources and raw materials. We have so much that the United States needs. And people understand that in order to have a real NAFTA, in order to have a decent trade deal, then it's going to have to work for workers on all three countries. And that's what the discussion is about.
Speaking of all three countries, when we're talking about the tweet that was issued by the president over the weekend, and essentially he was saying that we can cut Canada out. What do you make of that? What impact is his rhetoric having on any meaningful dialogue and negotiations that can continue between all of the people involved here?
You just nailed it, his rhetoric. I don't think people are succumbing to his bluster at all. You can't really take his threats seriously, because that's all he does. He threatens and he threatens and he tries to bully and he tries to push people around. So if you actually fold, which is the easiest thing to do, is just to fold, then you're not going to do a good job for Canadians. So this is really about holding our course. It's about standing strong. It's about standing together as a nation. It's about, giving proper support to Chrystia Freeland and her team, which are incredible negotiators. But it's about holding strong in difficult circumstances. Donald Trump cannot be the determining factor in how we move forward as a nation. We're going to make those decisions.
Now, watching these negotiations has certainly been a roller coaster ride, and we would imagine, too, that your members are watching carefully as well. How are they all feeling as we're seeing talks progress?
Well, our members are very supportive, but they're obviously concerned, especially our members in the auto industry. If you talk about a 25% tariff on Canadian exported vehicles, it's devastating to the industry, but it's also devastating to the workers in the United States. Canada is the #1 export nation for U.S.-built vehicles. 60% of all parts that go into Canadian assembled vehicles come from the United States. So what does Trump say to the laid-off auto workers in the United States? He has to talk about a vision, and he doesn't have one. So people are legitimately nervous, because we're not dealing with a personality south of the border that's really viewing this from an economic point of view. He's looking at it strictly from a political point of view. He's looking at this from the midterms that are coming up in November. So this is about him the Republicans winning seats. This isn't about common sense economics.
Well, surely a lot to come this week and a lot for Canadians to watch. Thank you for this, Jerry. That is Jerry Dias, the president of Unifor, joining us right here in studio. We'll be back in just a moment.